So yeah, guys, I have a lot to say about this game. This is sort of going to be a review slash in-depth analysis of the game. I'm not going to give it like a score or anything, but if you're wondering if I recommend this game, yes, I do. So in an interview with Nomada Studios, they actually mentioned that their team only consisted of about 4 to 5 coders, and then they had another 17 or 18 artists that were working on this game. And that really attests to what this game is. It's an art piece, you know? I mean, all games are art, but this game really is an interactive work of art. And that's why most of the people who were working on it were artists and not necessarily game programmers. This was their very first game, and the people who worked on it, the programmers anyway, came from Ubisoft. But let's get into the gameplay a little bit here. So on the surface, this game may look like a platforming game, but it's really not that. It's really not a platformer, and if you're looking for like a full platformer type game experience, this is not the game for you and you're going to be disappointed. Not to say that the platforming is bad, it's just that's not the main focus of this game. It's really an artistic storytelling game with some light platforming elements. However, I do want to add here, the platforming is very light, but it's actually really good, and really just the movement throughout the level, the way you move, the abilities that you gain, it just feels really good. The movement is just really good. It's inspired by Journey, Traveler, Ori and the Blind Forest, so if you played any of those games, it's got that same kind of feel. And basically, you're just walking through each level from start to finish, and you're collecting a few mementos, which are these little white balls of light. And that's what you do to continue forward. You're able to jump, and there's also different abilities that you gain after each level. But sadly, to go along with that, you don't actually use those abilities again like in earlier levels. So like for example, later in the game, you gain the ability to swim underwater, and you don't actually end up getting to use that again in like an earlier chapter for additional challenges. So that's a little bit disappointing. Also, after each chapter you complete, a new color is actually added to the world. So as far as gameplay mechanics go, that's pretty much it. There really isn't much as far as gameplay, and that's why I'm saying if you're looking for a heavy platformer type game, this is not the game for you. Now where the game does shine though is its story, presentation, graphics, music, sounds, and how all those things together make an immersive, emotional storytelling experience. Now you might notice as you're watching this gameplay, there's absolutely no text that is used for the storytelling. There's actually hardly any text used at all in the game. The story is told through the watercolors, the soundscapes, and all the interactions that Gris has on her adventure. Now there is a slight issue with this, not a huge deal, but there were probably 2 or 3 times where I did get a little bit lost, so it was kind of hard because there's no text to kind of figure out like where I was supposed to go, but nothing I didn't figure out after like 5 minutes or so it's not a huge deal. The story is really you leading Gris throughout this emotional journey as she tries to figure out why she lost her voice, what's going on in the world, what is she doing, why is she here. That's really what the game is about. And the music in the game does a great job of intensifying the emotions that Gris feels and in turn you feel while leading her through this world. I also think a lot of times in music that the absence of sound is underappreciated, and in this game, when you're playing it, try and pay attention to some of those scenes where the music just completely cuts out and you can't hear anything really other than a few environmental effects. Those play a really big part in the emotion of the game as well. When there is sound, however, though, it kind of focuses on a lot of low, constant vibrations to help you feel deeper, help you feel those vibrations within you. And then they kind of supplement that with some light piano pieces and some really fast string sections for some of the more climatic events in the game. So all this comes together to create a very immersive world, and each level has overarching themes that are tied together by all of these elements. So each level is tied together by a stage of grief that Gris is currently working through, certain colors, certain musical frequencies, or certain aspects of the music that help intensify those emotions that Gris is already feeling, and also something else, which is chakras, which have to deal with energy. And this is kind of a theory I have with the game. So as an example, chapter 1, right when you start off the game, your first steps into the game are very ominous. There's no color in this world. It's all grays, whites, blacks. There's no music. You're walking very slow and you're falling over a lot. And you're not really sure what's going on. What are you supposed to be doing? There's no text giving you direction. Nothing telling you where to go, what to do. Then, at the end of this first chapter, which is pretty short, you go into chapter 2, which is the next stage of grief, called anger. And what's important about this stage is, yeah, it's about anger, but this stage of grief, of anger, is also about feeling deserted and abandoned, needing strength. And anger kind of gives structure to this nothingness of loss from the very first stage, which is denial. You know, at first, loss can feel like being lost at sea, right? Completely lost in the middle of nowhere and you don't know what to do. But then once anger is introduced, you have structure because you have anger towards someone or something. And now, in going along with this, I actually have a little bit of a theory, and that is that the developers were also thinking about energy and chakras as they were developing this game. Basically, our body is made up of different energy points, and for this particular level, dealing with the stages of grief of anger, I believe this is a sign of having an unbalanced root chakra. This is the first chakra. It's located at the base of your pelvis, and the color associated with it is, in fact, red. This chakra deals with your connection to Earth and taking care of yourself, feeling safe, feeling whole, feeling like you belong. Symptoms of an unbalanced root chakra are feelings of insecurity, aggressiveness, restlessness, anxiety, and the biggest one of all, anger. And that's what this level is dealing with, is anger. The reason I bring this up is because in each of these chapters, Gris is dealing with a specific stage of grief and certain emotions, and one way to help heal unbalanced chakras is using music, and each chakra corresponds to a certain frequency. And believe it or not, in this level, a lot of the frequencies of the tunes in it are right around 99 hertz, and that is the frequency that resonates with your root chakra. The reason I'm bringing all this up is because I think all this together is what really makes you feel emotional towards this game. It really just makes you feel so deeply and so intensely that even the developers mentioned how a lot of people who demoed this game or tried this game at PAX actually cried as they were playing it, which is just amazing. And no, I'm not saying it's great that people are crying, but what I'm saying is I think that means that they felt so deeply toward Gris, or they had so much empathy towards what she was going through in the game, that they felt what she was feeling, and that made them cry. And I just think if a game is able to reach us on that deep of a level, I mean, that's awesome. Like, that's the kind of game that I want to play. And one other thing I forgot to mention that also goes along with this same chapter and all these other themes is you gain the ability to become like a stone block, because there are strong winds in this chapter that try to blow you over and not let you move forward, so you gain this ability. And again, this stone block is going together with all the other themes of trying to feel like you belong, you are here, you are safe in this world. And the devs actually mentioned how the dress represents how Gris grows and gains new things, new tools that help her overcome problems, just like with us in the real world, and how she just matures over time throughout the game. I could talk a lot about all the other chapters in this game too, and how those themes are all connected in each of those levels, but I don't want to spoil too much, so I'm just going to kind of leave it there. And yeah, guys, there's just a lot going on in this game that help make you feel immersed and make you feel like you're right there with Gris, experiencing this story with her, feeling what she feels, trying to overcome the things that she's trying to overcome. I just think it's really awesome, all these indie games that we're getting for Switch, that these developers are really just going out on all these crazy limbs, and they're being very creative in what they do. And I really like one of the quotes that the dev said in their interview, and that is this: "I hope people like it, but if they don't, it's like, well, I'm sorry, but we like it. We think it's a really good thing." And then he even further explains that you should really try this game even if it's not your kind of game, because they put their hearts into it and you might actually like it. And I agree with that completely, because when I bought this game, I actually wasn't sure I was going to like it either. I definitely really liked the way it looked, but I wasn't sure I was going to like it. And I ended up loving it. If you're looking for a long experience, this game isn't very long. I think I actually beat the main story in about 3-ish hours. There's not much extra things you can do in the game, but I don't want this at all to deter you from it. It was well worth the price. I'm not going to play it probably for a while, but whenever I want to go through that story again, just like reading a book again or watching a movie again, it's the same kind of thing. I'm going to bring that game up again and have a great time sitting through it and playing it. And I definitely recommend you play the game from start to finish in one sitting. That might be hard for some people, I know, but it's really only about 3 hours. So if you can carve that out in one of your nights or, weekends or something, I think it's very beneficial to do that. This is a really great game. I really hope people try it. I'm really excited to see where this studio is going to go from here. And Gris is really just a game that constantly makes you question, what is going on? What is the story about? What is happening to Gris? And it really makes you feel like you are on this journey with Gris, and it's very emotional and you feel a lot of empathy toward her. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. If I hear of anything that Nomada Studios is working on for future games, I will be sure to post a video about it, and I will see you guys in the next one.